for the Dolphins in recent times, it hasn't been great. Obviously back in the good old days, they had some success with Dan Marino, back to the 1980s. And then in 2008, they had that Wildcat offense that only lasted a year. But in recent times, they brought on Brian Flores as their head coach in 2019. And, he forewent against taking, remember those couple of games where the Dolphins were literally stinking up the joint. And then all of a sudden, they actually gave a damn. And that was because of Brian Flores, for better or worse. They won 5 games in 2019. They went 5-11, and sure, the draft stock went down some. Initially it seemed like Brian Flores was the right guy to bring in a culture change into that Miami Dolphins organization. But then, as you see later on, where the reports came out that he was fighting with the locker room, like verbally, of course, and then with ownership, with the front office, then as we're going to talk about right here and now, that seems like it's not going to be the case, because going into the 2020 season, it didn't seem the case, because the Dolphins ended up picking Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama in the 2020 draft, and then much later on, it turned out that Flores wanted Justin Herbert instead. So, despite all those problems, Brian Flores went into 2020. They ended up 10-6. They didn't make the playoffs, and it became very apparent though that Flores didn't like Tua from the start, because he kept flip-flopping him around with Ryan Fitzpatrick during that season, and it kind of hindered Tua's development. So, yes, it was well apparent that while Tua does have his flaws, Flores never once trusted him. So, going into 2021, there are a lot of things that the Dolphins had to work on, a lot of things to address. In the draft, they went on to get Jalen Waddle to get Tua some help, and going into the season, not too many expectations. I mean, the Dolphins did overachieve a little in year 2 of their rebuild. So year 3, honestly, some people were expecting playoffs. Some people were expecting, they're going to miss it yet again. So some things that we're just going to be a little on the fence about. So going into the season, we start 2021. They go to New England, beat the Patriots surprisingly, and then the wheels seem to have come off starting in week 2, when the Bills defensive end AJ Epinesa, sorry if I butchered that, he fractured Tua's ribs with a hard tackle, and that was in the middle of a shutout home loss for the Miami Dolphins. And then from then on forth, the Dolphins wound up losing 6 straight games after that. By the time they reached the mid-season, they were 1-7, and one of those losses included to the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars in all-elite London. Yes, they ended up losing to the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars, and by that point in time, they already had Tua Tagovailoa back in the lineup. So what does that tell you about Brian Flores and his weird coaching with Tua? So, again, even with Tua, the offensive play calling was bad for him. It was never tailored for Tua to give him a chance. And I mean, it was besides the bad play calling and Tua doing okayish under Brian Flores. The running game was bad all year long with Myles Gaskin. The offensive line stunk up the joint in Miami. Mike Gesicki was probably the only highlight in that offense, along with Jalen Waddle late in the season. But yeah, not good for the offense. The team did go on a 7-game win streak starting week 9. And again, offered some positives aside from Gesicki and Jalen Waddle. The defense was pretty much the biggest highlight for the Miami Dolphins win streak. Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard in the defensive end, a power unit. Defensive end Christian Wilkins, a big force in the pass rush. But in fairness though, the teams that the Dolphins faced in this win streak, they faced the New York Giants, they faced the New York Jets, they faced the Carolina Panthers, and then they faced in the Monday night game, they faced the New Orleans Saints with Ian Book, not Taysom Hill, not Jameis Winston. They faced Ian Book on a Monday night with literally no time to prepare for Book. Yeah, that's just telling of how fraudulent this win streak was. And then when it came nut busting time for the Dolphins to face an actual playoff contender, for them to get into the postseason, or at least try to keep their playoff hopes alive, against the Tennessee Titans, literally 6 days later, they get shit on. They shit the bed. And the Titans whoop their candy asses. And out goes their playoff hopes like that. I mean, they did beat the Patriots, and they forced the Patriots to play the Bills in round 3 of the playoffs. But what does that really do for Miami in the grand scheme of things? So pretty much, that game against the Titans, pretty much a rehash of the entire season for Miami. The offense stunk up the joint. Tua couldn't get anything done with the play calling and the offensive line. And yeah, again, they pretty much faced shitty teams during that 7-game stretch. So overall, for Miami, it was a tale of two halves. They did go 9-8, but looking at how it went, that 1-7 start, and then that 7-game finish. Yeah, it was kind of weird. Now, for the biggest surprise of many, Brian Flores was fired after the season. And looking back at it a little bit further, I mean, well, I'm a little bit indifferent about it. Some say it was the right decision for owner Stephen Ross to make. Others, not so much. But overall, when you look at it, Brian Flores didn't seem like the right guy to do it because, well, he didn't really give a shit about Tua and what he had to offer to the table. Unlike the next head coach that they hired in Mike McDaniel from the San Francisco 49ers, the offensive coordinator. Now, it remains to be seen how much of what Mike McDaniel did in Santa Clara, how much he really did with Kyle Shanahan as the play, in terms of the play calling, or all I heard from what I seen with Mike McDaniel was he did wonders with the running game, and I guess helping out Jimmy G. That's what I've seen all over the web. But anyway, again, there's a lot of friction between Brian Flores and pretty much the entirety of the Dolphins, and now he's currently in the midst of a league-wide lawsuit between himself and the NFL. So, I mean, again, aside from all the legality, all everything revolving Brian Flores, this team was just very flawed. The offense, again, showed little interest in Tua. The offensive line was a mess. Devontae Parker was unreliable. So pretty much no help for Tua aside from Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. So hopefully going into year 3 for Tua with new head coach Mike McDaniel. I do like his chill demeanor. It's like he's smoking whatever. I don't know what he's smoking, but he's pretty insane. I mean, we'll see how he does as a head coach, but it seems like it'll be time to see if he's going to be the right guy to get Tua back into a good, at least a good quarterback. So going to the offseason, the Dolphins have a lot of money to spend, around $49 million. Not that many key free agents. And if there were, they have a laundry list of free agents, but 2 free agents that stand out is Jason McCourty and Will Fuller. But obviously, the long list of free agents that they have, easily replaceable. But the things that they need to address in the offseason is the offensive line. The offensive line. The offensive line. Yeah. They have to address that offensive line because that O-line was atrocious. Tua literally had to run away from his life, and even Jacoby Brissett had to run away for his life in the games that he played. The offensive line was offensive to watch in 2021. They couldn't hold off even the worst of pass rushers, and were one of the top teams in sacks allowed. Not good for Tua and Mike McDaniel and that front and Chris Greer. That has to be that top priority to not only give Tua a key to success in 2022, but keep him upright long term. Secondary receivers behind Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, no longer a healthy option. And that makes him an unreliable option. Fortunately, Miami, free agency gives them a little bit of bargain bin options as well for the draft. Gives them some good options as well. Even at where they're positioned at with 29, because their current draft pick is owned by, I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles, but fortunately for them, even at number 29, they should be well positioned still to pick a good amount of receivers and in that solid draft class. So either way, they need a number 2 and number 3 option for Tua in 2022. They have to upgrade at running back. Tua was pretty much forced into a running back role because, well, the actual running back room sucked dick. It really sucked donkey dick. Myles Gaskin didn't look like the running back that the Dolphins were hoping for, so they have to get a consistent, solid runner that can play in the starting role, whether it's a guy like a bargain bin guy like Raheem Mostert coming off an injury, or they go out all in on a guy that, well, they, at least on paper, seems good, like Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey in the trade market, if they're available. They have to upgrade the running back position. So some things to address for the Miami Dolphins in the offseason, both in the free agency market and the draft. But overall, they're in an interesting position. Tua didn't necessarily look like a quarterback that showed improvement in 2021, but at least for Mike McDaniel, it seems like he can be the guy that can be a decent coach and mentor for Tua. But the execution for both of them remains to be seen. They have a strong defense that remains from Brian Flores' days. But if the Dolphins want to keep up with the likes of the Bills, the Patriots, and the rest of the non-AFC East contenders, then they have a lot of work to do in 2022.